I thought I wanted to give him some great foundation work. I'm like, this is the perfect foundation. I mean, he learns a little bit about everything. He's learning about mobility. He's learning the proper way to use the weights.
I am an everyday athlete.
I am an everyday athlete.
I am an everyday athlete.
Good morning, everyone. This is Jared Bass with Mark McCain, and you're listening to Everyday Athlete, a podcast devoted to bringing you the amazing stories behind the lives of day-to-day CrossFit athletes like yourself. Today we have a wonderful guest, Mr. Jonathan Marshall. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. You just kind of came back to us not that long ago, right?
That is true.
Yeah. So where are you originally from? The Northern Kentucky area?
I am from Northern Kentucky. I actually grew up in Union.
Yeah.
And, lived a few other places, but back in Union.
Yeah. So you're born and raised from where else did you kind of move around to?
Well, when I was in the Marine Corps, I was out in North Carolina for a while, and then California, 29 Palms area, and then Coronado area where the SEALs are trained, and I got to watch some of the training. Wasn't a SEAL, but
Not a SEAL, though?
not a
the
SEAL.
Marines, yeah.
What did you do in the Marine Corps?
I was a communication major.
Okay. Very cool. What all does that kind of entail?
Well, it's basically setting up the TIC band. It's basically AT&T for when somebody's out in the field. So they set up phones that go to the general, the captain, and everything. It's the way they communicate all throughout the field. So we'll set it up. They usually have a kind of like a little city. Like if you ever saw the show MASH, there's like a little city there, and so they could call between there, and then they also have the people out in the fields that have like the more cellular type phones.
Huh. Very cool. How long ago was that?
Let's see, my last days was 1999.
Well, it's funny you talk about that. A lot of people don't even think about there being cellular devices before the early 2000s. Probably a little bit ahead of the time. From a lot of that technology comes from
It was a backpack.
Yeah, it was a backpack. Okay.
Yeah.
It was a
in the
heavy
bag.
backpack. Yes.
I remember my dad, he would, when he was I don't want to say starting out, but I remember I would go on, like, he was an insurance agent, but he would go between car dealerships, and he had the brick, like not even the brick cell phone. It was like a pack.
Yes.
And it
Phone in a bag.
plugged in the cigarette lighter, and it was like 14 pounds. Like you could kill somebody with it if you swung it hard enough.
Self-defense.
Yeah, but it was pretty cool back in the Chevy Lumina. Like it was, like boop, boop, boop.
Yeah, it was like $2 a minute to use.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it
it's
was
exactly
nice.
what it was.
They were
yeah.
making a killing on the rates.
Yeah.
Dad, can I use the phone? No.
Yeah.
So why the Marines?
Believe it or not, I have a history in our family as Marines, and
okay.
so my father was in the Marines. My uncles, and a couple of my uncles were in the Marines. So, and ironically, I married my wife, whose dad was in the Marines, and all his brothers were in the Marines. So we got a whole family of jarheads. So
Yeah.
that can
Wow.
be good and bad. So
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the Marines usually. Again, I didn't have the honor to serve, but the reputation is they're the toughest. They get the crap kind of as far as like equipment and everything, and you guys are kind of the grunts or whatever. But you could go in there and you get stuff done.
improvise and overcome.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I love that. Yeah. I always like hearing that background because, I had some family members that served, and every one of them said, "Don't do it."
That was the first thing my dad
Yeah.
said. When I told him I signed up, he's like, I just can't believe it, because I didn't tell him I was
Did you
signing
do it right out of high school, college?
It was actually after my freshman year in college. I just was lost,
Mm.
didn't know what direction I wanted to go,
Sure.
and so
Yeah.
basically the Marine Corps gave me a kind of a guidance of what I needed, and I tell people, I go, it was the best leadership school I could have ever gone to. And they-
Yeah.
I love that.
Amazing.
I wish that everyone would have that opportunity for at least a year.
I
I
think would
You know,
be
just
the best
just
thing.
for that discipline and see what it's like to do some physical training and follow orders.
Correct.
All that
To be
stuff.
and to
Yeah.
be not only physically tested but mentally tested
Sure.
as well. I think I think it's pretty well known the reputation for our generation is a little soft. You know, and we know that's not true. You know, you have your outliers, but you have your outliers in the other direction too.
Sure.
You know, you have, you know, for example, I think we just talked about it yesterday about CrossFit is the biggest health movement that America has ever seen.
Sure.
You know, it's no longer just a exercise routine or this cult fitness type thing. It is now a full-blown health movement. I just saw today on CrossFit's Instagram account, they actually just posted a video of a man with adaptive athlete with cerebral palsy with a 70 kilo power clean.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, he's setting up, and you know, he's moving around. He's, you know, finally gets set and just kind of goes for it and goes nuts after he made it. But again,
awesome.
It's not just a fad. You know, that's someone who has basically improved themselves to the point that you know, he's doing better than 90% of the country right now. You know, doing more.
And that's really cool to see.
Yeah.
And that's
Absolutely.
what keeps drawing me back. And I love the team atmosphere. That's my favorite thing about it, is the team atmosphere, because people holding each other accountable.
Sure.
I'm older, so but nobody's pushing you to extreme levels. We're pushing each other to get a little better each day, a little better each day, and that's
Absolutely.
why I enjoy that part of it.
One of the ways I described when I found CrossFit, that team atmosphere. I played team sports literally my whole life, probably from age 4 to 20, and there was that brief period. Actually, even when I lifted in college, I lifted with a group of guys. You know, every time there'd be 5 or 6 of us. All right, we're going to the gym. All right, let's go, and just having that push. And then after I got out of college, there was that brief window. It was actually when I met Jared at Urban Active. We spoke about that before on the podcast, and it was just me and another guy going, and we weren't really good about being consistent, and it was like kind of boring, kind of going through the motions. And then when you find CrossFit, it filled for me personally, again, it filled that void that I didn't even realize I was missing, you know, because I was just so spoiled by like always having people around to kind of push me and support me.
Correct.
And call me out if I wasn't there, and you know, all that stuff. So that's I think one of the biggest, you know, if not the biggest things CrossFit does, and especially for you, like coming from a brotherhood like the Marines, you know, whether you're playing sports or just have people around you, I just don't. I don't know how else you would really do it.
I tell people, I go, my self-discipline usually comes from other people. I mean, if I know somebody else is going to be counting on me to be there a certain time in the morning to go do something, I'm going to be there.
Right.
If it was me just wanting to sleep in and it was just me, I'd sleep in.
Right.
So I mean, you need that extra. A lot. I would say 90% of the population needs that extra push. I mean, you know, I'm bringing my son now.
Sure.
And
That's
he's
great.
10 years old, so we're having a lot of fun with that. And he's seeing this, and but he's motivated by teams because he plays baseball, and he's a big sports person. And so we basically can get up in the morning, because even though if I'm really tired, I know he's tired too. But if we're both up and ready to go.
There you
I love
go.
it.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Going quickly back to so after you got out of the Marines, what was the kind of next step for you?
Next step was finishing up college, and then
So you went back to college after?
I did. And then so I was active duty, what they call a 92-day reservist. I did like 2 years of active duty throughout my 8 years, and then the rest of the time was reserve time. So I was going to college back and forth throughout that whole time.
Okay.
And so I finished at Thomas More. I played soccer for Thomas More and kicked on the football team for a year. So
Very cool.
I had a pretty good. I mean, Thomas More is a great college.
Did you have a different kind of perspective on that education you were getting after getting through the Marines?
I did 10 times better in college as soon as I came back from the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing I noticed, there's a class system in the Marine Corps. There's enlisted and there's officers. And I was like, well, if I want to make a life of this, I want to be an officer. 'Cause there's definitely a difference. And so I said I needed to go back and finish school. So I had this motivation to finish school quickly. So even if it was whatever degree, it didn't really matter what degree, I'd still be able to go back and do that and then be an officer if I wanted to.
Yeah, I can't imagine you would finish up something that was that stringent with a daily regimen. and then go back into a something like college and not have some of that carryover.
Yeah, my grades went up. I was like on dean's list like right afterwards, so I had a new respect for the time I'm at school, that I can get this done, and it's not as hard as I think it is.
Well, I think that's one of the things that we talk about here a lot is just, and really what it comes down to is your daily habits. And, you know, whether that daily habit, again, you come to a fork in the road, you can go one way or the other on every single decision you make. And, you know, whether that your week looks like meal prep on Sunday, get up early on Monday, go to the gym, make sure you're, you know, getting enough sleep in, or you say, hey, I'm going to go pregame at the Bengals game, watch them lose, you know, drink all day, and then had a bad week or a bad start to your week, you know, you're already setting yourself back. So it just comes down to those daily habits.
You saw my Facebook photo. I was at the game.
Were you?
No, I didn't pregame, but it was sad.
But you know what I mean? Is it just comes down to those daily habits that you start to build. And, you know, I think even someone said something to me this morning about, well, I just don't understand how the coaches, you know, stay so fit. And I think what it comes down to are those daily habits. I'm not saying this person doesn't have good daily habits. I just think it comes down to a decision that, you know, when I go home, I eat the same thing every day, you know, just because it's become a routine,
right?
You know, and to be completely honest, for the last month, usually around that November, December, I'm just as guilty as everybody else. And a lot of those daily habits start to go out the window because you've got
parties,
5 Thanksgivings and 4 Christmases and parties here and all sorts of things. So I think just knowing that if you do fall off that bandwagon, that you can hit a reset button. Yeah. You know, it's not, well, I had 2 bad meals, I just give up.
Well,
you know?
that's what the third meal can still be good. I found people that I've heard people say this. They go, well, I started off the day bad, so I'm just going to let the rest of the day go bad. And I'm going, well, you don't have to. You could actually turn this around. And I try, if I have a bad meal, because I'll have one, and especially during this season, I won't eat. I'll eat different the rest of the day. If I can do it.
Yeah, that
stem the bleeding.
There was I can't remember the actual. I'm awful with actual names, but when it comes down to some of the higher level athletes, but they were talking about her cheat meal. You know, I used to have cheat days where it's like, well, it's Thursday, I'm just gonna eat whatever I want.
Absolutely.
And then it was like, well, I'll just have my one kind of eat whatever I want meal. And then, you know, where it comes down to for some of these higher level athletes, or again, maybe just taking your own nutrition to the next levels, I'm going to have a cheat item.
Absolutely.
You know, like I'm going to go, like if I love donuts, I'm going to have one donut on Thursday and that's it. It's not just some like 1,400 calorie meal.
Well, and again, I mean, it goes back to discipline. You know, obviously, John experienced that in the Marines, and it's tough whenever you don't, you know, whenever you leave that home environment, as far as like growing up, like your parents, obviously, but teachers or whoever is responsible for your discipline. Now you're kind of in charge of your own discipline. You know, it's a free country. We can eat whatever we want, and if you don't have a filter, you know, like you said, to have the discipline to. If someone walked in right now and was like, I got a delivery and it's a cake and donuts and all this stuff, if you don't have a filter, you're just gonna be like, all right, let's indulge. And for me personally, you know, again, I'm just like Jared, just as guilty as anyone else this time of year, but at the same time, I've already, you know, I almost don't want to verbalize it, but like I've got a couple, and I hate kind of New Year's resolutions, but just like a new discipline, I'm gonna try to do is not indulging in sweets, you know, through the week or whatever that looks like. Whatever it looks like, I want to discipline myself to the point where whenever something does be placed in front of me, I don't have to feel like a weirdo to say no. Like, because everyone else is like, oh, you're not gonna eat a cookie, like, you know, and sometimes you have to take a minority position, you know. John, you get a CrossFit. Brian talks about it all the time, like marks of a man. One of them is taking a minority position, you know, and that's not always going with the flow and like, all right, everyone's having a beer, give me a beer. Sometimes you drink water. You know, exactly. Sometimes, you know, and it doesn't mean you can't go out. You can still go out and have a good time. But I guess what I'm getting at is just whenever you decide to have that donut, if you've been eating clean Monday through Friday or whatever it looks like, Sunday through Friday, it honestly tastes better,
Right.
and you feel like you earned it.
You earned it.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And it's so much different whenever you are deploying that discipline. And it's just like probably in the Marines, whenever you guys are getting your butts kicked, Monday through Friday, let you go on Saturday. It's like, hell yeah.
Oh, we're on leave.
Let's go.
Let's go. No, and I'm like that still. My weekends are my weekends. I try to watch things, but during the week it's a lot easier when you're working, and so you got a regiment. But then the weekend comes and you don't have a regiment. So now it's just kind of like, I'll enjoy a little bit of the weekend. I tell people my goals are different than other people. I go, I've done marathons. I go, they ask me my time, and I go, I really don't know. I don't remember. I go, I just finished.
Yeah.
I go, I have a hard time picking people up 26 miles away in my
Right.
car.
Yeah.
I finished 26 miles. I finished 26
Right.
miles.
Done.
And that's my philosophy. And I go, my pants, I want them to fit.
Right.
And so
Right.
I'm not real. At least not at this point in my life. I'm like trying to get cut abs. I want to be. I want my wife to find me attractive.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Who doesn't?
So yeah, if I look good to her, then I'm all good.
And I think a lot of that comes down to, especially maybe some of the vanity leaves. Everyone wants to look good, feel good kind of thing. But I think
Absolutely.
at a certain point, it's I need to be. You have children. You're getting to a point where it's like I need to be healthy so that I can be here for a long time.
Well, it's more of an example,
You know?
and an example for
Yeah,
them, too.
exactly. Yeah, because it's
Well, it goes from how much do you bench to what's your resting heart rate?
yeah, exactly.
It really does.
Yeah, it really does. And when you talk about making an example and things like that, like we see so many people that unfortunately don't see a correlation between the way they're feeling and what they're consuming.
Right.
And we all obviously know there's a direct correlation. I just just got back from the American Open, which was an amazing experience, and seeing some incredibly strong people, and did my best to eat the best I could, but not to say that I didn't have a meal or two that I really enjoyed, that was probably outside of what I should be eating. But guess what? Overdo it and I don't feel that great,
Right.
That's weird.
but I know why, but unfortunately a lot of people, they don't see that direct correlation that 15 Christmas cookies is going to make them not only feel bad but do some damage internally.
Absolutely. Well, and then my big thing is don't have it in the house. If we don't have it
Yep.
in the house,
Oh yeah, I have zero actual willpower. That's one thing. If it's around, I'm gonna eat it.
Well, and that's what's tough in the we're almost 2018 office environment, and I'm sure it's not anything new. It's been going on for years, but if you do work in an office environment, generally speaking, it's a holiday. Someone's birthday.
Oh man,
it's always around, and that's what we're talking about. When sometimes you can't be afraid to be like, nope, I'm not gonna do it.
there was when I worked for
That's true.
Yeah,
I used to
it's
work
tough.
for the Park District, and there's like 90 people that work there. And I swear to you, there's a birthday every day. I'm like, there's only 90 of us. Like, I don't understand how there's a cake here every single day. It's mind-boggling, but
Well, that's like when you're in your early 20s. It's like, who's turning 21 this week? And we're all going out.
Right, exactly.
It's like, oh my goodness.
I don't know why I'm broke.
Yeah.
exactly.
So, get a little off topic. I mean, yes and no, but so we kind of finished up with the Marines, and then where do we go from there?
Then I started. I became a financial planner.
Okay.
And
Is that something you kind of were in school for? Is that just an interest you've always had?
Well, it was interesting. Is I wanted to go to work at Fidelity. I started learning a lot about Fidelity while I was there, and this was the funniest story I had was when I was getting very close to graduating. I did 3 interviews with Fidelity. I pretty much knew everything about Fidelity, how to get up the line, do all this. And then I get to my 3rd interview, and I'm pretty much thinking I'm one of the people they picked, and because I was a pretty high candidate, at least in my head.
Sure.
But they were giving me some feedback, and she told me I had too much ambition.
Too much ambition.
Ooh.
And she goes, "You're going to be on the phone for at least 2 years."
Yep.
And she goes, "You're going to have a hard time with our culture." And I was devastated. I didn't even know what to do because I kind of put all my eggs in that basket because Fidelity is pretty much north of Kentucky, especially back then. That was where to go. Well, I didn't know much about the independent financial advisor. So I started talking to a few, and then I found out that's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to work with people one-on-one, and it evolved where I worked for a company for 10 years and did really well with them, and then eventually started mine.
It's crazy how some of those things that are at the time, devastating, emotionally and things like that, and how they are the right answer.
Exactly. Oh, no,
You
she
don't-
did me the biggest favor.
Yeah.
I can't thank her enough. If I saw her, I would thank her 10 times because I did better because of it. It gives me a little bit more freedom.
Yeah.
And I would probably not do well in the corporate environment in that type of position.
Yeah, there was a point at when Mark was basically, I was running back and forth between two gyms.
I remember that,
And Mark was basically doing this on his own, and we were in the side gym, the side garage of the old gym there, and kind of sat down, and he's like, "Man, I can't do this on my own, and I need you here." And it's like, I don't know if I can just step off that ledge, and we did, and not that like we're firing on cylinders here at all times, but it was absolutely the right decision, and it's like, it's one of those things, again, it's like that decision at the time is scary and very unknowing, but obviously is the right thing to do.
Well, it's like the whole thing, again, it's like it's warm underneath the covers, right? And you're like, I don't know, stick an arm out, it's a little chilly. Like the comfort zone, it feels real good. And then whenever you actually take that leap, I mean, you can talk about it till you're blue in the face, but until you actually experience it, and it's just like CrossFit. So many people come in here and they're scared,
Right.
and because guess what? It's not in their comfort zone. Their comfort zone might be an hour on the elliptical, and then boom,
or an hour under doing bench, or an hour doing arms,
whatever it is,
hour,
run, or whatever it is. Maybe just on the couch. And unfortunately, that's a lot of the, how we really want to step in and help people. I want to, what Coach Glassman always says is off the couch, off the carbs. If we can just get people to eat better and get off the couch, that's, any fitness program at that point will ultimately just.
That's 70% of the battle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's and that's when I think, any business owner, any person in general, whenever they see their biggest strides is whenever they're in that water that might be shark infested, they don't know it, and they keep pushing through.
Right.
Yeah.
And there is something at the other side, and there's that. Well, I remember when you guys were going through that, because I have a partner, Mark, and he's very much like Mark, which is really funny because I start laughing. I go, I really think you just need to have a good talk with Jared. I'm like, you guys work so well together because you have different strengths, and that's what's been.
We are very different in the way we work, and that's is one of the we.
Why would you want two people the same?
Oh,
right,
100%.
That's exactly. You want to have a team that's completely different.
Yeah, and to that sense too, the team that we have here, everybody brings something a little bit different to the table.
There's nobody like.
We've said it before. It's like we could do this on our own. We'd be burnt out within a couple of weeks.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
But we could. But the nice thing is we can bring people into the fold to assist us and roll that ball forward a little bit more towards an end goal of just really building up this community.
And people enjoy being part of something.
Yeah, 100%.
That's so true.
Absolutely. I want to take a very short break. We're going to come back and we'll talk about how you kind of came into CrossFit, how you found it, and all that stuff, and we'll kind of go from there.
Okay.
We'll be right back.
Well, I didn't really start exercising much at all until I was probably in my late 20s, kind of mid-children. I was a big runner for a long time, did 7 or 8 half marathons. I loved running. At the end of my last half marathon, ended up with a stress fracture in my leg. Finished that half marathon, and of course at that point it was like, well, I can't run because I have a stress fracture, so I was looking for something different. One of my friends actually worked out at Covington, and I went there with her, and fell in love with it. I started there about 3 years ago, and then I came here about 2.5 years ago, and I've been here ever since. It's very different than anything I've ever done. Little weights in the gym, like when I used to work out at LA Fitness, but nothing to this extreme, nothing to this level. And I do it because you hate yourself while you're doing it. You question your sanity, but when you're done, you feel like a whole new person. Definitely stronger. I definitely have more stamina. I feel better all the time. I sleep better. I make myself eat better, because if I don't eat better, then I feel terrible when I'm here. I have a pretty physical job and surgery, and so it helps a lot with that. But just being strong overall helps every aspect of your life. With your kids, I have a 10 and a 14-year-old. You can be super active with them. It's good for your mind, it's good for your body, all over. And I'm definitely stronger at 40 than I've ever been in my life. I like clean and jerk. I like split jerk. Not a big fan of the snatch, but I like to lift heavy overhead. That's my jam. Oh, absolutely, you're going to be nervous because you don't know what you do. You don't. I mean, you watch people and you go through the on-ramp class and you know the moves, but you have no idea what weight to use. You have no idea, getting all the equipment out and everything. But the good thing about this is that everybody's willing to help you. The coaches are awesome. They're going to tell you how to scale something if you're injured. They're going to tell you how to start things light, because the last thing you want is an injury. So there's really no reason to be nervous. There's always modifications. Everybody here is fantastic, and they'll help you get through it. I think you get a major accomplishment anytime you PR. I mean, the first 2 years you're at the gym, you're going to PR all the time, and you kind of think, oh, I'm just going to keep getting stronger. I'm going to keep getting stronger. And then you'll hit a plateau. I don't know if it's an age thing or if everybody hits a plateau. But then when you do hit that next level, that even if you PR just by 5 pounds and you hit it, you just feel like you won the lottery. Since I've been here 3 years, practically all of my best friends have been at this gym. I've developed so many relationships. My husband comes here, we work out together, but I have several of my very best friends now that belong to this gym. I love this place.
Welcome back to the Everyday Athlete podcast. We're here with Jonathan Marshall. We left talking about a lot of different things, but I do want to give back a little bit. As after you were talking about leaving or starting your own financial planning company, and I want to talk about how you kind of came to us. So you were originally at the old gym, the old car wash. Comes up from time to time on the podcast. The old, very awkward, shaped CrossFit gym that we had.
It was a great place.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It had one benefit, and it was the fact that in the summer it was like a wind tunnel.
Yes.
Yeah, it was really nice in the summer. Like it was not nearly as warm as it is in here. But again, very low ceilings. We were very limited in what we could do. So.
It's a great story to talk about the beginnings.
And now that place is, if you guys have driven by, I think it's they put a ramp on either side, and I think they used it as they housed their vans for a cleaning service in there. So they unload and load all the cleaning equipment in there.
I see that.
So I saw them. I had to drive by there, drop my car off one day at Tom Gill, and they were pouring a slab out front for the little ramp, and I was like, I couldn't imagine what they could do, because it couldn't be another car wash. I think when we took over, that was part of the agreement, is they poured 6 inches of concrete on the floor so that you couldn't make it a car wash again.
Wow.
So whenever they bought that place from, I believe, Classic Car Wash. So anyways, I digress. So you showed up, how did you find us originally?
I think it was the Alexanders.
Okay.
Heather Alexander. And I've been reading about CrossFit, didn't know much about CrossFit. Actually, everything I read was all about how the craziness of CrossFit.
The stigma.
Yes.
Yeah, the stigma.
And then I think it was Heather that told me about the place, and I was like, well, check it out.
Her sister was coming, and I remember her connecting us to talk a little like business and stuff like that, and then obviously you kind of decided to come on over.
Yeah.
Yep. And then your wife came for a little bit, and
her and Heather came together
kind
for
of a family affair for a little while, and now you're back at it with your son, which is awesome to see.
Yeah, took a little hiatus, and then what kind of made you decide to come back?
It was him. Well, I wanted to come back because I left when I had an injury, and so I just started running and working out my own, and then I was like, I kind of want to go back. Well, and then I thought I wanted to give him some great foundation work. I'm like, this is the perfect foundation. I mean, he learns a little bit about everything. He's learning about mobility. He's learning the proper way to use the weights.
Yeah, that's one thing that comes up time and time again. And again, myself included, is if I had this when I was 14, when I was,
Absolutely.
They've interviewed ex-NFL players that are, it's like, if I had this when I was in high school, I'd be unstoppable on the field. Because again, you're broadening your focus a little bit. You do have to be sport specific, but again, we see more and more now, again, is not only technology, but the knowledge of the human body increases. Being sport specific can actually be detrimental.
Right.
And we see it in a lot of younger kids that are, it's like no sport is just a season anymore.
No.
There's year-round soccer. There's year-round baseball. Year-round.
All year long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's one of those things that you're just doing the same movements over and over and over again. And things like soccer, we see, non-contact ACL, MCL tears because, you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. Baseball, I'm sure, Mark, you've got a couple injuries you've seen, pretty often where it's just this motion. Mark was a pitcher, so it's like one shoulder is always going to be very tight, right?
Yeah, it's just preventative, maintenance and different things like that. And ultimately, again, if you're building a good base at a young age, like, if I'm fortunate enough to have kids and they're healthy and they're able to do things, I would love to start them out in like a gymnastics or something like that to build a great base and just body awareness. And they're not gonna like start benching at age 3. It's
Exactly.
it's kind of comical to think about that type of stuff. But yeah, it's get them doing a variety of things.
He started tumbling when he was like
Sure.
3, so
Right.
you're getting that gymnastics part of it. And I think the cool thing about it is that the mobility, I mean, as I get older, that's really, really important to me, but it's also very, very important because they didn't really emphasize, like, we stretched for 10 minutes and that was it. And it's not really, it was the same stretches. It's not changing things a little bit, and really emphasize on the muscles that are sore in some cases. Because
I think
coaches don't know this.
I think
Right.
mobility
Yeah.
is, when we think of mobility, it's not just that. It's a lot more than just static stretching.
Exactly.
When people think of stretching, it's a static stretch, and usually it's, just kind of pull my leg back, and it's like, okay, that's good.
Exactly.
And it's been proven that you need a minimum of a 2-minute hold to have any effect on that muscle that you're actually trying to stretch. So most people, that's why we love like Ramwat, because it's just like, it works a lot like our classes. It's like, hold this for 4 minutes. You got 3 minutes left. You got 2 minutes left. And so you have this like end game. You're not just like, well, just hold this for a couple seconds and hopefully that fixes it. It's a lot different. It's a lot different than it used to be, even from when we first started.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, you're always trying to be a better version of yourself each and every day, whether it's business, probably fatherhood, all these things. But yeah, it's constantly varied. I won't recite the whole definition.
Yeah.
But CrossFit works, and it works for all ages. Whether you're 10 or 80, it's been proven. But again, it's just that stick-to-itiveness to where, like, hey, Jonathan left with an injury, but now he's back and ready to build for longevity. And even before I think we started the podcast, you talked about, you mentioned earlier about like having some goals and just how they change over the years. And I love the accountability buddy being JP. And have you seen a change in him as far as just like maybe a little mentality towards getting up and going to the gym and how he interacts?
Yeah, if he gets up or if I get up first, whoever's up first, then we're like, it's kind of like a game. And like,
Sure.
all right, got to go.
Right.
Like, go get that person up because it's entertaining to wake the other person up because
Sure.
we're not nice to each other at our house.
That's funny.
Who's going to turn on the lights? But I mean, yeah, that's the accountability part. And we've also brought in another friend, and which is going to be more enjoyable because he's going to be able to do more this coming week. And it's becoming a little bit more competitive adding him in there because JP knows him too. He looks up to him. So we're going to have more fun with that part. And hopefully we find more people like that, because the more that we can have a group that's holding each other accountable, going, where were you this morning?
Right.
I think that's what pulls us back, and because it's easy to get off track. And once you get off track, it's easy to jump back on, and it's also much easier not to get back on it.
100%. Yeah, I see that a lot. With being in business now for over 4 years with the gym, it's eye opening to see so many couples that'll come in like gunslingers, and they're all in.
It's a big red flag.
One little thing happens, and then it's like they're all out, and it's just tough because you got to take your lumps along the way, so to say, with fitness, and you're going to have your holidays, you're going to have your surprise things that come up financially where it's like, I don't know anymore about this, that, or the other thing. But I think it's just positive, negative mindset. It's like, all right, we're all in on fitness. All right, let's stay positive with it. Let's make this, a pillar of kind of our own like beliefs and foundations. Because I think no matter who you are in life, whether you decided to make CrossFit your fitness modality, if you will, or methodology, if you will, you need some type of physical activity. It could be playing basketball at the YMCA or whatever it is. You need to get that stress out, because in our day-to-day lives, we're so device driven. We're always like connected. We're always engaged. Like, you need that physical kind of relief for so many different reasons. And
you need the other people.
You need that community.
You need that community. It's just as important.
And we've had people leave for various reasons, and the ones that I guess are the most painful, the ones that don't, in our mind, don't necessarily have a great reason to do so. When you talk about, you have to be doing something. If you're just leaving and doing nothing, I want to find something for you,
right?
Whether it is a running group or maybe it is something like Zumba. I don't really care, as long as you are doing something that is bettering yourself.
Anything but Zumba.
I picked that one because it's a little weird.
Yeah. But even if it's like a yoga practice or whatever it is, clearly we believe in resistance training for all the reasons that back it. But just that you gotta have some type of mental release. Because especially, I look at you, Jonathan, you're a business owner, you're a father, you're a husband, you're a friend, you have all these different obligations to deal with every single day. Like, when does Jonathan get to have Jonathan time?
Well, people always ask me, they go, why do you run so much when I do run? And I go, it's not speed. I go, I'm like Forrest Gump. I go, it's for mental. I go, it's not about so much being in shape. It's literally, I don't have to think.
What are you running from?
Well, that's very.
Well, there's so many things. Let me start the list,
right,
and right then I don't have to think about it, and I can just go, I'm going to get here.
Because we've talked about your kids' schedule before. Like, maybe fill us in. You're a father of two, and your kids are just. I don't know if I've met someone that has busier kids than you. Maybe fill us in a little bit on what's a week look like in the lives of Mr. Marshall.
I can use last night. Right, so I got off work. I rush home to Union, pick up my daughter, take her to the Carnegie down in Covington. She's at rehearsal. Drive back. My son has a choir performance. After that's done, I'm driving back to the Carnegie to pick up my daughter by 8:30. And then I get home and I eat and say hi to everybody and give everybody a kiss, and before you know it, it's time to go to bed.
Right.
And it's that every night. I mean, tonight's basketball, so but then my daughter's going down to Carnegie, so I feel like an unpaid daddy Uber.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
But I mean, that's my priority right now. I go, maybe one day I will be going for the abs, but it'll probably be like 18 when they're 18, and I'm just they're not really caring where I'm at.
So maybe speak a little life into myself and Mr. Baston, who don't have kids yet, and like how do you still make fitness a priority for you, and at this point you and your son, but even just you more specifically, whenever you look at the week and you pull up the calendar and it's full, how do you maybe try to maneuver something around to like get your workouts in?
Get up earlier.
Get up early. Yeah, I feel like that's a solid answer. And one of our
And
big,
I've tried it every other way because I don't like waking up early. People think I do. I don't like waking up early. You have to get up
It's a
early.
priority.
Yeah.
It is.
It's all about making a priority,
Right.
And that's again that we've talked about that ad nauseum here. But it's you have to make this a priority. And again, if it's not this, you have to make your yoga priority. You have to make whatever this is for you. You have to make that your priority.
And then you have to. You have to be flexible enough to be able to change. I was here in the afternoon a couple times last week, and I'm like, well, something didn't work out. I had to take them early to school. Well, let's make it for the afternoon. Let's go to the 4:30 class. You can do it. It's just sitting back and not going, I'm not going to give up on this.
Sure.
Right.
Then you got to fight for it.
You do.
It doesn't just boom and you're skinny or whatever.
Just like any relationship, you can align this to a relationship. It's not always just going to be easy going. You are going to have to tell yourself to do some things you don't want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's Netflix. That's
yeah. Well, whenever I hear like get up earlier, I immediately thought like go to bed earlier. And that's a tough time too. I'm sure for putting down kids and getting them to sleep, and especially I know there's several people here that have newborns and waking up in the middle of the night and so on and so forth. It's really, it can be really challenging to
with the newborn,
make it to a 5:30 a.m. class.
Yeah, the newborns, it's the most flexible you ever have to be in your life because they're your schedule.
Sure.
And it gets better, but at this point, my wife and I watch TV. We usually watch an hour a night, but it's Netflix at night. But it's just us two after the kids go to bed.
Yeah, sure.
Then it's time to go to bed.
Because that time is important too, right?
Absolutely. Because you're still talking to your spouse. So watching something and talking.
Well, I think too, making that time available. It's really easy. Like I kind of made it a point to stop trying to either bring my laptop home or not open up after I get home. Because it's really easy to get home. If I get home at 7:30, I can work till 10 very easily.
Absolutely.
You can definitely find things to do.
Well, I haven't been taking my laptop out of my bag for I always bring it home on the weekend, but it's so funny is I've got to this point that I'm not going to work at home unless I absolutely had to.
Yeah.
And every once in a while I had to pull it out, but I rarely do, and now I got to a point I just don't want to.
Right.
Well, it's a give and take. I mean, you can whether it's you could make a couple extra bucks or but the reality is that the world's not going to end if you don't do that little bit of work at home.
Right. Well, I know my period with my kids is about this big, or I'm pinching my fingers. I learn from my clients. I learn more from my clients than they learn from me. I tell people because a lot of my clients are older, and life does go quick. I have a short period of my life to do a great job with them and spend the time with them and take all the moments. He goes, before you know it, you won't be spending that much time with them. Hopefully you have grandkids because then they'll want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Please take this thing off my hands.
Exactly.
But we heard that not too long ago at the conference we were at, and it's like no one on their deathbed says, "Man, I wish I would have worked more."
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I like my work.
Yeah.
I
Sure.
know you guys like your work. I could work all day, but then I also love my family more. So you kind of put those priorities.
Sure.
There has to be a work balance, and that's also brings in your health. Because I would like to be here when I'm 80. Being the grandpa in the corner saying whatever I want, and everybody laughs at.
Spoiling the grandkids. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's that constant perspective of what is the end game, that we're all playing for, and it's that short term dopamine effect that I got to check Facebook and how many likes did I get, or all these things that are going on right now in society, and every time all this presidential stuff that I try to avoid like the plague, and but it's pre-programmed into your smartphone and all that stuff, and anytime you're do want to engage and look up some news or whatever, it's just so toxic. I
think it comes down to just I heard this the other day, and my job in life is not to be a goalie. If I'm here and if you got a goal and I can help you, I'll step out of the way. You
Right.
go ahead.
Right.
As long as you're not hindering my ability to do what I want to do, do whatever you want to do.
Exactly.
Have your fun, do what you need to do. But like you said, take care of yourself, take care of your kids, take care of your family. Because again, that's really what it's going to come down to. Everything else, all Facebook aside and all that stuff, like none of that really matters when it comes down to, brass tacks of what you're trying to do in life.
Right, and you surround yourself with people that have the same type of goals. I always use a great story. King David, he had Nathan. I don't know if it's a biblical story, but King David had Nathan. Nathan pretty much told him everything he did wrong. Like that's what he was there for. If you have friends that will tell you, "Hey, Johnny, get up. You got to get to the gym. Johnny, you're not doing this right. Johnny, you're not doing this right," and in a nice way that they're wanting you to be better. It's not because it's for them to just criticize you. It's because they want you to be better. So I like to surround myself with Nathans. I tell people, I go, if I have more Nathans in my life, and that helps in the social media part too, because most of the people I see on social media and are on my feed, they're posting really cool things about their kids. They're posting things. I really don't get into the political part either. I have my political views, but I really don't share them that much.
Sure.
I know who I vote for.
Right.
Yeah.
If
Exactly.
people ask me, I will tell them, but I'm not going to tell them on social media because I don't really want to get in an argument. Nor do I want to spend the time.
That's one of those things as a business owner too, where you refrain from, some of that stuff. And some people don't, but for
All
me,
of that stuff. We try to refrain from all of that stuff.
For me personally, like I don't, that even like with sports and stuff like that, people will, tend to they can rattle the cage or whatever it is,
I'm never gonna say it.
Yeah. So anyway, but I abstain, like even from engaging in those types of conversations.
Well, I think that what it comes down to is where our biggest thing, our driving force here. It took a couple of years for us to figure this out. Which it sounds silly that it took us a couple of years to figure this out, but our driving force is the community here. And the community is all encompassing. You're trying to include everyone, and as soon as you stick your line in the sand on a issue or even a sports team, we can rib Mark about his sports team's choices, but even something like that can draw, start to put that
Go
wedge
to a darker side.
Yeah, and the reality is we're trying to foster a place of positivity.
Yeah, and that's what I love what you said, Jonathan, about surrounding yourself with Nathans and having that. And when I hear that, I just hear mentors. Like you had to have a mentorship. I think, there's a couple guys that I lean on constantly that are, strong men, in your life. And I'm not saying it has to be a man, it has to be with a man or whatever. But for me personally, just with, I'm in a new marriage, and whenever I was going into that, and just those guys kind of setting expectations, and also the line that you said about I've learned more from our clients, and we're 100% guilty of that as well. Of just, man, I love chatting with folks like yourself that are successful and have experienced life, a little bit more than I have. And there's, we're spoiler alert, we would really love to start like a silver sneakers program and get some of the aging population in here. And when we talked about like coaching it, like I volunteered myself, and because I love to hear those types of stories of the wisdom and stuff like that. And I know one of the things, if you do engage with that population, one of the things that they might voice is just that regret, as far as if they didn't get a chance to do something. So when people, business owners, so on and so forth, anytime that I share my story with someone, they're like, man, that's so awesome, like that you went for it, or like that, I wish I would have done something like that, or I wish this. With the aging population, like that's the one thing I feel like they don't want to experience is regret, and it's
you see these grandpas that are babysitting because they worked all that was their generation. Man went to work. Well, now they're babysitting, and they love it. And they're like, we missed out on all this. And he goes, and now I get to see all these things. So you got grandpas that should probably be retired and taking vacations other places. They're not. They're like, no, I'd rather babysit.
That's right.
And because I'm enjoying this part, I'm watching my grandchild do this.
Yeah.
And it's a different view. And so, and kind of working with those markets, knowing what they want, and they don't want to regret. They want to just go, all right, what can I make up for if I didn't get to do this back then?
Yeah, I guess correlating that to just the younger generations, like, well, I wish I could do this or that. It's like, just, if you really want something, like, do it. So many people want to kind of give you the lip service, you know, and it's, you don't want to get to age, 90 or whatever it is, and you're still saying, I wish I would have, like, because again, the most valuable resource everyone has is time, and it's unrenewable,
Absolutely.
And fear of failure is pretty. People are just scared to go out and do their own thing.
What they don't know.
We always say it's like the worst that's going to happen is we're going to have to go find a job.
Exactly.
Like the worst thing, it's like, well, we might have to go like actually get a job, but because the hours are long here, and there's times where it's unbelievably stressful, but at the same time, I don't think any of us really treat this like oh God, I got to go in there today.
Right.
It's I get to go in today.
Yeah.
I get to go do this, and that makes it I think one step up, from what a lot of people feel for their employment.
Well, and I that's why I always commend you guys on some of the stuff that I always like about, especially this gym, because I've been to other CrossFit gyms. It's not that I've not been to other ones. You guys are always looking for new, innovating things, and you're trying to bring it into there. And you're like, all right, is that worth us trying to bring it into the business? And let's try to make this see how it works with the group. It's like you're almost piloting, but nobody knows you're piloting some things. And
Yeah, it's for me personally, it's deciphering the good ideas from the great ones. It's like we're reading a book right now about disciplines in business, and one of the things that we just read through, Steve Jobs, like, turns down 100 good ideas a day just to stick with the great ones.
Yeah,
right.
Well, what was the example they gave of the one phone manufacturer? They brought him in to basically interview someone from Apple, and he basically walks out and says, "This isn't fair." He said, we have 40 different phones that we have to make all run on the same software. They make one.
Right.
It's not fair, and it's funny because you think like, well, I'll just keep doing. I'll do more. It's like we always come back to whenever we feel like we're stretching ourselves too thin. It's like, what do we do really well, and what is the most important thing we do?
And how do we make that better?
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because I think we are definitely in a more is better kind of environment, and we're even on a group thread with a bunch of entrepreneurs on a Slack, and my question I've wanted to pose this for a while, but it's like, what's wrong with doing one thing really well? It's always like, what can I put my hand in next? What can I sink my teeth into? And it's like, I watched a documentary a long time ago. It was a documentary on a Japanese noodle maker. This is super random, but this guy, he's probably in his 90s, and he's been doing this his whole life. And not until he's in his 90s are people finally paying attention. But he's the only one that does it this way now. It's like, what's wrong with doing that really well? He just played the long game. Right. Now he's finally reaping the rewards. It's, are you willing to play that long of a game? Most people aren't. I think it's a different breed of person.
It's almost like that. It's an unwavering belief in yourself, because again, like, if you're 10 years, Jonathan, if you're 10 years into your business and you're just seeing modest returns, and it's kind of like, I'm only improving by 1% every year, 1%. And there's people telling you like, hey man, you come over and work for me, we'll see 10%. And it's just that unwavering belief that, like, this is going to work.
Right.
This is going to work. And you have those kind of dark times, and that's fitness too. It's like, because so many people want to come in and see the 30-day abs or whatever,
right?
And it's like, hey, I lost 1 pound this month. All right, hey, I lost 1 pound this month. All right, well, in a year I've lost 12 pounds. So many people, this is a quote a lot. So many people overestimate what they can do in a year, and then they underestimate what they can do in 3 to 5. And it's just, they want that. Well, here we are again. It's about to be January 1st, and here comes the resolutions, and everyone's going to go all in on.
All the magic pills are going to come on on the radio.
Yep.
Exactly.
January 1, you'll lose 30 pounds.
Do you engage in those type of activities, like New Year's resolutions and stuff? Or
I'd like to, just
or
because
is
it
it
gives
more
me
like goal setting?
it's goal setting. Because it's like a new year, it's kind of fresh, and I'm going, all right, well, and plus, November and December are usually your slower. Well, for me, it's my slower months. Except I do a lot of business money, so I have a lot of families coming in, but it gives me a little bit more time to spend on my planning.
Sure.
So after not eating as well for December, because we got Christmas and all the holiday parties, it's kind of nice to go jump into January going, all right, let's go on this hard. And it gets you ready for spring, because I love spring. And so I'm looking forward to spring as soon as January hits. And, I want to be outside. I want the sun to be out at 6 o'clock.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So I do set some goals, but I think it's more because it's a new year and I'm going, what can I do? What can I achieve this year?
Right.
It's not so much if I don't make it to there, but can I do something better and can I get to a 34-inch waist or 32, go from 34 to 32? That would be my next goal. Because like I said, that'd be nothing, changing diet a little bit more, and I could get there.
There's a whole nother hour on goal setting we can talk about.
But they're not big goals, and I don't want goals to be really high at this point in my life. I'm like, I want something very achievable so I can celebrate a little bit.
Sure.
I used to have all these, I want to hit this high and get there, and if I don't get there.
Again, going back to that book we're reading, it's like, when you focus on 1 to 2 things, you're likely to hit 1 to 2 things.
Exactly.
If you focus on 6 to 8, you'll probably hit 4. If you focus on 11 to 20, you'll hit 0.
Well, how many conferences do you go, and you got millions of ideas that you just came back with, and you're like, I literally, anytime I've gone to I go to one right at the beginning of January, which helps me get my year started, and I take 2 to 3 things. I actually have to break it down and going, what are the 2 to 3 things I'm going to use this year? Everything else I'm going to put over here. If I get to those 2 to 3 things and they're working, and I got some other orders of things, I'm like, maybe I can bring those in. Or if something comes up throughout the year, I'm like, I'll go back to them. But the 2 to 3 things are going to be my focus, nothing else, because I will. And then you're drowning.
Oh yeah.
Trying to set all these.
Yeah,
goals.
they call it in the book. They call it your whirlwind.
Yes.
You have this, because you have your daily kind of things that have to, generally have to check your email. Unfortunately, you have to. Do your little things like work out and pick up your kids or whatever. But again, if I can have just one clear, and it goes back to vision and purpose. Right. What is my vision? What is my purpose? And that can be for your life. That can be for your business. That can be for your kids. If you don't want your kid, if you want your kids to be healthy, does letting them eat a whole pack of Oreos, does that match your vision?
No.
But again, if so many people get bogged down on losing sight of that,
right?
Then it's ultimately, does this move the boat, so to say, forward in my life? Am I and it's as simple as that, day to day. Like for us doing this podcast right now, this is part of our vision. We want to learn more about our members. We want to get their stories out there. So yeah, it's the right thing to do. Can it be better? Absolutely. It can always be better on our
Do
parts.
everything perfect.
Everything. And that's just like the business, and that's why we do that stuff. And I appreciate you acknowledging, hey, we are always changing stuff, because we want to get better. We don't want to be stale. So but I would encourage anyone who's listening to this at the end of the year to don't set more than 3 goals for 2018. Try to really, and if you hit all 3 of those goals by the end of January, guess what?
Lucky you.
Yeah, you gotta raise your expectations, but at the same time, don't shoot for the moon necessarily, or shoot for the moon and fall on the stars. However that rings for you personally. But I do see so many people that'll set that bar so freaking high, and by February 1st, you're like, oh, I'm never gonna get there. Right. I'm with you, Johnny. I need to set these small wins.
Right.
Instead of saying I want to lose 20 pounds, I want to lose 1 pound a week, right, or whatever it is, and then am I there? Oh, I just checked the scale. I'm up 2 pounds. So I have to reassess. They talk about lead indicators, lag indicators. what does my nutrition look like? You know,
Right.
so if that's my goal.
Yeah. Speaking of learning things about our members, I do want to ask you a kind of final question, because have you gotten a chance to listen to any of these? So we always ask
I didn't listen all the way through. I
always
listened to the beginning.
We ask the same question to everybody that comes through.
Well, I didn't know you guys had a podcast.
Oh my gosh!
Until you told me about. Well, when I saw that on the line.
Yeah.
But I just came back, so.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So we always ask the same question, and it's just a pretty simple question, but there's been some kind of similar through points, but everyone's had a different answer. So pretty simple question is just, what is your definition of fitness?
My definition of fitness is I'm healthy. Mine's very simple. My pants fit. If they fit, I feel comfortable what I'm wearing, and then I feel good. And the pants I like, which I know is my right size, not the ones that might have that have the expandable waist a little bit that you can
They
get
still
at Kohl's.
fit.
They
They're
still
sweatpants.
fit, yes. But no, if my pants fit, then I feel good, because I know that I'm doing the right things that day, because I'm not eating bad. So, and then I'll look good that day when I'm going on appointments and different things like that. And that's simple to me, is that my pants fit. And if my wife goes, hey, every once in a while,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I say,
there you go.
how you doing?
Yeah, I love that.
That's perfect. It's one of the more simple ones we've had. I like it. We're gonna probably just end things there, and we want to thank you for coming on today. We appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Enjoyed this.
It's been great having you back, and great having JP here. So it's thanks again, and thank you all for listening to Everyday Athlete. Join us next week as we dive deep into the lives of those who make us great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.